What's going on, guys? Welcome back to your Lake Fork Guide. Today we're going to break down the victory by Ben Milliken that shocked the world at the Toledo Bend Bassmaster Open. It's a pattern I'm really familiar with. We're going to explain it in depth. It's the ultimate home run pattern. We've seen it before on a big stage. We'll tell you about that. And did we actually have a hand in helping Ben Milliken win the Toledo Bend Open? I don't know. We'll have to break that down, and you make the decision for yourself here in a little while. And also, as well, in today's video, we're going to introduce something new and I believe to be somewhat revolutionary in the guiding business. In fact, I think after today's video, we're fixing to change the guiding business forever. First off, let me say congratulations to Ben Milliken, man. He has come out of the gates in the Opens firing. He recently had a little bit tougher finish at Bugs Island, but man, a top 5 finish in the first one, then wins the second one. Just winning a Bassmaster Open. You got 200 and some odd guys that are all very serious about bass fishing. About 100 to 150 of them are real serious and real talented. So an incredible field. I think you probably have some Elite Series guys, and they tell you that an Open might be harder to win than an Elite Series event. It's a really big accomplishment to win any of those tournaments at any time, let alone your second one you've ever tried to. We've said it, Ben's for real. He's the real deal. He's got more time on the water over the last 6 to 8 years, probably more time than just about anybody on earth. And traveled, well-traveled. He's probably more well-traveled and has more diverse fishing experience over the last 6 to 8 years than anybody. Honestly, he really does. If you really understand what all goes into what he's done and the time and the way that he's spent it, if you get to know him a little bit personally, like I've seen him and his time that he puts in on the water on several occasions. So Ben's worked for it, man. He's done a great job. Congratulations to him. That's an awesome accomplishment. He gets to fish at Bassmasters Classic now. All that is awesome. I'm interested in the dynamics of the pattern. That's what I want to talk to you guys about tonight. The dynamics of the pattern that he used on Toledo Bend, because it's a pattern that, to the best of my knowledge, started at Lake Fork. It's a Lake Fork pattern. It's certainly more of a staple at Lake Fork than any other lake I know of. And we actually filmed some videos on Toledo Bend a couple years ago. We were pre-fishing for a Bass Champs event. The Bass Champs event got canceled due to that week-long freeze in 2021. But myself and Jonathan Boland, my buddy from Oklahoma, went down there and pre-fished. And we actually found that exact same pattern that Ben used to win. We found it, and the reason we found it is because we were Lake Fork guys, and that's such a prevalent pattern on Lake Fork that we just saw all the things that were similar to it on Toledo Bend. And what's really interesting was, man, there was nobody on this pattern then. And if you went back and watched those videos, you would even hear me say, if somebody will take advantage of this pattern on Toledo Bend, they will dominate the tournaments here. You absolutely would dominate. So I'll say it again. We're going to break the pattern down in detail tonight. If you go out and really get to know this pattern and get good at executing on it, you will dominate tournaments on Toledo Bend with this pattern, especially from like January to June, which is when most of the bass fishing tournaments are. I know there's tournaments down there all year long, but that's when the majority of them are, majority of the bigger ones are. You will be dominant if you're the first one to figure this pattern out on Toledo Bend. It's an unbelievable pattern. We are going to break that down in depth. Right before we do that, though, I want to tell you guys about something that's been an idea. We've teased it a couple times on here. Man, it's something that I've been trying to figure out the right way to do. And like most things with me, the right way to do it is just jump off in it and do it and then figure it out as you go. So that's kind of what we're going to do. But this is an idea that I think will change the guiding industry for bass fishing for forever. I really do think this is going to be that big, that impactful of a thing that it will, on some level, change the guiding business forever. And there's probably going to be, like there has been in the past when we've come out with the Fish Life app, or just when we started doing YouTube videos and sharing the amount of information that we did. We've got a history here of sharing more information than people are comfortable with. It upsets other people how much information we share. People that fish the same lake as you, they get mad at you, but man, we can sit here and have that discussion, that debate all day. I've got my reasons for doing it the way I do. I don't think it's obviously not hurting the fishery. It obviously hasn't hurt the fishing business out there as far as guides go. There's more new ones now than there was when I started, easily, and a lot of new faces that have built a business based on that. So it's not hurting the guiding business at all doing what we do as far as sharing information goes. But this is just something we've always done. We've always tried to come up with all kinds of different ways, and we understand not everybody can be a guide customer. Listen, we can only take so many people out a year in our boats, and there's thousands of you guys that come to Lake Fork every year. There's no doubt about that. And there's thousands of you guys that are into fishing that may want help on your lakes as well from people that have a lot of experience, such as myself or Cody Mays or David Ozio or, you know, being a Whit Smith, any of the fishing guides at Lake Fork, you name them. There's so many good ones. Greg West, I mean, God dang, there's a lot of really, really good. Brian Duplashane, there's so many. We could just name names all night, so we won't do that. But you guys may want some help from those guys, but maybe you don't want to spend $600 on a guide trip, or you can't. And by all means, I don't think that anybody should scrimp together money and save up and pay for a guide trip. There's other alternatives for us to help you on your trips. There's fishing apps like the Fish Life app that we have that have fishing spots and advice on it. There's information that we give for free on social media that can help you catch fish. Here's what happens. If you scrimp and got to scrimp and save to pay for a guide trip, you are setting yourself up for disappointment, because your expectations, when you put that much into paying for that guide trip, that one day, you have so many expectations riding on that one day that the odds are you're going to be disappointed. Because the reality is we don't go out there and bust 35, 40-pound bags every day, guys. We don't. We don't go out and catch 30 or 40 fish every day. We just don't. We catch fish almost every day. It's very rare that we have a zero. But there is a lot of 10 to 15 fish days, 5 to 10 fish days, 15 to 20 pound bags, 20 to 25 pound bags. There's a lot of those days on guide trips. And if you look at the history of the Elite Series on Fork, you'll see that, yeah, the guys at the top are catching them real good, but there's some really good fishermen at the middle and at the bottom of the pack that aren't catching them that good when they're here. So it happens to everybody. It's just the way fishing is. All we see on social media and on television, on internet fishing shows, is the highlight reels. We don't see the struggles in between. We see the guy caught a 30-pound bag at the weigh-in on Bassmaster. We didn't see that he went 3 hours without a bite in the middle of the day, and he only caught 8 fish. Like, you know what I mean? We just see the highlight reel. So all that being said, I've been thinking of this idea, and I think it's an idea that will help guys that maybe you can't spend the full $600, but you really want professional advice for your guide trip when you're coming here. You want some spots to start on. You want in-depth map study that explain to you what type of structure they're setting up on and why. All that type of information. So what we're going to do, we're going to start the Your Lake Fork Guide Consulting Services. That's a big sounding name, but basically what it is you call, text, or email to set up a time, and we will schedule a virtual online meeting through Zoom where we can screen share, and I can get on Navionics web app, I can get on Google Maps, and I can show you guys exact spots. We can break down structures, exactly which parts of the structure those fish use, some of those top secret, out of the way hard spots on Fork that are so great in the summer and offshore that really don't show up on a map very well. We can show you exactly where some of those are, or we can even talk to you about other lakes. Take this video we're talking about tonight. Ben Milliken just executed that shallow point hard spot pattern that we're going to break down here in just a minute. You can now set up a time to have a video conference with myself, and we can go over that pattern on Toledo Bend. I can teach guys on Toledo Bend the same shallow hard spot pattern that we run on Fork, the same shallow hard spot pattern that Ben Milliken just whipped everybody with. I can teach you that now on Toledo Bend just by using online tools. I can teach you that on any lake that sets up accordingly. I can teach you that. I can teach you that on Rayburn. I can teach you that on, maybe not Ivy because all the bushes up shallow keep you from going there sometimes. But there's a lot of lakes, right? Palestine, Lake of the Pines, all these lakes have this pattern within them, and it's the ultimate home run pattern. We can now teach you that through our consulting services. So what we're going to do is we're going to have you guys set up a time. It's going to go by 30-minute and 1 hour increments. You can book for 30 minutes or you can book for an hour. We'll get on the Zoom meeting. I'll pull up the Navionics web app and the Google Maps and show you guys that screen in the meeting, and we can sit there and talk, and y'all can ask me whatever questions you want to ask me, be it about Lake Fork, be it about another lake, be it about patterns in general. how to find structure that holds fish year in and year out, all those type of things, seasonal, whatever you want to talk about, we can break it down in the new Your Lake Fork Guide Consulting Services. And if my book is full for consulting times, I have all these other guides that I know that are great, that I'm sure will be happy to set up times with you guys as well. I've talked to a few of them already. They're in. They love the idea. So it's just a new way that we can help you guys catch more and bigger fish through the consulting services. The rates are going to be $150 for 30 minutes, $250 for an hour. With that being said, let's get into this pattern that Ben Milliken used on Toledo Ben. This has been, I think, it seems like the biggest news in the bass fishing world over the last over this whole year, really, over this season, has been this Ben Milliken win. Him being such a YouTuber, social media fishing guy, there's always been kind of the two worlds, right? The tournament guys and the social media guys. Now a lot of tournament guys do social media, but they don't do it near as effectively as the social media guys do. And the social media guys a couple times have gone into tournament fishing, but they don't do that near as effectively as the tournament fishing guys do. Now we've got one social media guy that is going to the tournament world and doing it as effectively, if not better, than most of the tournament fishing guys. And that's why this is such big news. Make no mistake, Bassmaster's website is experiencing record views. Their coverage at weigh-ins is experienced, for opens is experienced record views. Their blogs with Milliken, everything involved with Milliken and Bassmaster is all getting record views for Bassmaster. This is a big, huge deal. If Ben goes on to make the Elite Series, it is going to greatly affect Bassmaster's viewership. He has that much pull in his viewer base from social media. And there's a bunch of other guys too. If Kicking Their Bass TV or one of the Googans or somebody along those lines were to break through and have the success that Ben is having on a major tournament trail like the Bassmaster Opens, it would do that with those guys as well. It's unbelievable and way underestimated the amount of influence and reach that these social media guys that are real big have on the bass fishing industry. And so when one of those guys crosses over, it's going to change things. So with this being such big news, I felt the obligation to cover it, because it is a pattern that started at Lake Fork, to my knowledge. And it's pretty simple. It's pretty simple. So what you got is you got shallow hard spots, shallow points is the main, shallow points is the thing. These shallow points extend and protrude out into the lake, and they're really shallow for a long time. To me, the best ones are kind of narrow. The ones that get pretty broad, sometimes you can lose the fish on those a little more. It's a lot easier to define and specifically target the stretches of fish that they will utilize whenever the point is a little narrower. But you can find these on your Navionics maps. You can find these on Google Maps. Whenever the lake levels are low, they stand out like a sore thumb for sure. They're easy to find. And what you have here is as this thing protrudes out, the lake level goes like this, and it comes up and goes over that point. So whenever the wind blows the water current over that point, right, it really makes the top of that hard. It exposes hard clay, it exposes rock, and shell tend to gather on this, because the other thing that happens is as that current, the water's this deep, and as that current goes, it condenses that water column to just a couple feet, right? You go from 20 feet to a couple feet going over that point. What that does is condenses plankton, guys. Especially when the wind blows straight in on them, it pushes all the plankton up onto that shelf. And when you push all that plankton up onto that shelf, man, bait fish are going to gather there. And that's why on this pattern, it's always best when the wind's blowing on them or across them and not away from them, or no wind at all. You want that wind blowing on or across that point when you're fishing this pattern. That's a real key component. We've talked about that in the past. We've done other videos on breaking down this pattern and how to fish this pattern. But it condenses that plankton on those points when that water's flowing over it or into it. And that brings the bait fish, and of course that starts the food chain, and now you can understand where you're going to get your predatory fish like bass to show up there. The biggest groups of the biggest bass in the lake show up on this pattern every spring on every lake that this occurs on. For whatever reason, this pattern does not get utilized on many lakes. Many lakes where this exists, this pattern does not get utilized. It's a Lake Fork deal, and I don't really know a whole lot of other lakes that it's real prevalent on, but it's very popular at Lake Fork. And now it's starting, obviously, to catch on at Toledo Bend. Years ago, Takahiro Omori, Lake Fork connection, he lives in Emory. He's a Lake Fork guy since he's moved here. Won on, I believe it was Wheeler Lake, on a shallow, they were calling it a sandbar at the time, or shell bar. It was, Wheeler Lake's a river impoundment, and he was fishing a shallow hard spot and throwing topwater walking baits and line through swim baits on it. The topwater walking baits, sometimes they play, sometimes they don't. We saw this pattern. Last time we saw this pattern get national attention was when Lee Livesey won with 42 pounds on Championship Sunday. That was a topwater walking bait deal. But if you'll watch that tournament back, he also caught some fish on a line through swim bait. What did Ben catch some fish on? A line through swim bait. What did he also catch a lot of fish on, though, on Toledo Bend specifically? Carolina rig with a hog walleye, basically 6 inches version of a brush hog, right? Baby brush hog. It's kind of in between the two sizes. It's a brush hog look-alike for sure. Now, if you will go back to the video that myself and Jonathan Bowling helped me make it, but the video that we made on Your Lake Fork Guide in 2021 in February, you will see that once we got there, we discovered the same shallow point pattern, setting up the exact same way, and we were catching some quality fish. We were catching little fish on it. We were also catching quality fish on it. We were just had a day and a half of practice, 2 days of practice, something like that, and we were just starting to put the pattern together. And we were really looking forward to fishing that tournament and trying to expand on that pattern and really focusing and catch some big fish. Now, we caught some quality size fish when we were practicing. We also caught some small fish. But like I said, we were just touching the edge of the deal. And we were there earlier in the year in February when that pattern is effective, but not nearly as effective as it is in March, April, May, June. March, April, May, June is when that pattern really shines the best. You can get it going as early as January, but it's not as consistent, as effective as it is later in the year. But if you go back and look at that video, we literally were catching our fish on those shallow points on a Carolina rig 6 cents hog walleye. It's the exact thing we were doing. What Ben Milliken did, he caught most of his fish, even though people think he's a swim bait guy. He's come out and said this many times. He caught most of his fish on a Carolina rig hog walleye. And what did we do 2 years before that on Toledo Bend? We dialed in a pattern on shallow points. We duplicated it across the lake, catching them on a Carolina rig hog walleye. Now, it has been well documented here. We've had the pros have admitted it on this channel. They watch Your Lake Fork Guide. The tour pros, the Elite Series guys, the Bass Pro Tour guys watch Your Lake Fork Guide when they're coming to Lake Fork. That being a Toledo Bend video, did Ben Milliken see our video? Did he watch the Your Lake Fork Guide video and kind of get some clues about that pattern from Your Lake Fork Guide? I have no way of knowing that. I don't think he did. That part about us helping Ben win is a tongue-in-cheek thing. Nobody take that seriously. It was just a joke. I'm never going to be arrogant enough to presume that any of these guys needed help for me to figure something out. They're all very, very good at bass fishing and better than me, most likely. So I don't think Ben used us, but he could have. It's feasible. Like it is possible that Ben Milliken, he knows me. We've known each other. We fished around each other. Like we fished boat to boat against each other. We fished in the same boat together. Like we have a relationship. So it is possible that Ben Milliken saw our video from Toledo Bend a couple years ago when he was doing some Toledo Bend research, because he said himself he'd never been on there until practice, and got a clue about that shallow point deal and that Carolina rig hog walleye from Your Lake Fork Guide. It is possible. Do I think it happened? Probably not. Probably not at all. He probably had no issue figuring that out on his own, because I also know that Ben's been to Fork enough and around Fork guys enough that he knows that pattern. And that pattern is one that I will say this, most people don't utilize them on other lakes. Ben does utilize that pattern on other lakes. And he's good at it because he's real good with those big baits, and those big baits play on that pattern a lot. So, but he's good enough at the pattern. He understands the Carolina rig aspects of it as well. So, you could go back and watch our other shallow point videos to get a more in-depth breakdown on exactly how to set your boat up and all the little details that'll make you a little bit better at that pattern. But the basic gist of it is shallow wind-blown points. Find a life source on them. You don't have to necessarily see the bass, because a lot of times they're so shallow you can't see them on your graph or on your electronics. But you got to find the life source. You need bait. You need some life around it. You need a wind, and then Carolina rig, line through swim bait, glide bait, big topwater walking baits, square bills, and jerk baits. All those things can work at any given time. We've seen all those patterns over the years work on, all those baits work on that pattern over the years. So rotate through those baits and chase those shallow wind-blown points this time of year. You're going to have a chance to run across the ultimate home run pattern. It is. Look at what Lee, look at how bad Ben blew that tournament. He beat the brakes off them boys. Look at what Lee Livesey did, catching 42 pounds on Championship Sunday doing that. It's a hero home run pattern. You got to remember, you're going to fish a lot of them and catch nothing. But when you find the right ones and you start putting it together, it's going to be something that you've never seen before. Like, that's how good the pattern is. It's the ultimate. So if you've got a lake, you need to start trying this pattern. If you want more help understanding this pattern, you can also reach out to us at our new consulting services at Your Lake Fork Guide Consulting. By the way, to get us there, all you got to do is call or text us at 903-519-1542, or you can hit us up at yourlakeforkguide.com. The information is all there. Just go under rates and trip info, and it'll have rates and trips for our guide trips as well as our new consulting services as well. I just said as well too many times as well. Yeah, I did. Not a professional speaker, just a fishing guide that tries to help you guys catch more bigger fish, man. One more time, congratulations to Ben Milliken. It was super cool to see that pattern be executed at the level he executed it on, which is the part that me and J-Bo, old Jonathan Bo, we probably would have screwed that execution part up. No one else. We probably would have. So not saying by any means that we could have done what Ben Milliken did. I never wanted to insinuate that in this video. Great job on his part. He did it, man. He executed on it, and he hammered down on it. So good job, Big Ben. All right. I think that's going to do it for tonight, man. Thank you guys so much for watching, as always. We'll see you guys next time right here on Your Lake Fork Guide.